feeling when you create something that is uniquely yours. Today's session is all about that, guiding you to create base maps that promote your organization's identity, as well as show off some of your creative flares. Of course, with a little bit of jumpstart from the ArcGIS Vector Style Editor and the Community Map of Canada, a great resource for Canadian ArcGIS users as it provides an accurate and current base map of the country. More about that very soon. I'm Alia Kotib and the Community Map of Community Maps advocate, where it's my mission to help communities leverage this great tool to the max, and I'll be your host for today's, alongside with my partner in crime, Paul Hearsang. Hey, Paul.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you may be. I'm the program manager for the Community Maps program, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my knowledge and experience with you, particularly as it applies to the vector tile style editor.
So whether you are a new to Esri Canada webinars or you're a veteran attendee, you can enjoy a repeat of this webinar at a later time or share it with your colleagues as it is being recorded. We also ask you to complete our exit surveys. This webinar topic was actually a result of those surveys and online polls. So we do listen and we do use them for topics. Paul and I love your questions, so feel free to ask them while we are presenting. They do play an important role. To ask any questions, please use the Q&A panel. If you do not see the Q&A panel on your screen, scroll to the three dots right next to the close the webinar kind of session and activate the control panel where you will see the Q&A. So, excuse me, our agenda for today is focused on five elements. We will begin with an overview on what vector tile maps are before we move into taking a look at the ArcGIS Vector Tile Style Editor and what it can actually do. We will then watch a short video about the Community Map of Canada, and as that will be today's starting point for the creative session. And then we will get some cartography tips from our cartographer in residence, Paul, who will be walking us through these tips and a demo. I'm a technology enthusiast, and I like to play around with Esri technology and Esri software every once in a while. So Paul will be actually showing me, and all of us, I'll be joining you in learning how I can actually change a map. And we will, before we conclude, and so each month, our GIS analysts on the Community Maps team take turns to design a map of their own choosing, which is published as our style of the month. Here we have our styles from April to July, where we celebrate Star Wars, spring, the oceans, and spiders. This activity is simplified with vector tile maps because they're easily customizable. Vector tile maps moved from beta to ArcGIS production in 2016 before making their way into ArcGIS Online in 2019. To optimize performance, they are multi-scaled, pre-rendered, web-accessible image tiles that make it very easy for you to customize and change and make them a great tool, a versatile tool. So now that we understand about that, the ArcGIS Vector Tile Style Editor is available to you in different ArcGIS environments, whether you work in online or ArcGIS Enterprise or even ArcGIS Developer. It is your one-stop shop to copy. You have the ability to either copy one of your existing styles or, as we will be doing today, copy a style from an Esri style and have that as our starting point. You can also use the tool to edit, and you can pretty much edit and change colors, sprites, fonts, and images. You can also customize. By that, we mean that you can decide which layers you want to make visible on a map and at what zoom levels. You can bring in your own imagery or your own images to create new sprites and backgrounds. And once you have something that you're happy with, you can definitely publish that into ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise, as well as use it in your application. With a little bit of help from our marketing team, we're now going to watch a little video about the Community Map of Canada. Jacek, could you please play the video?
And we're not getting any volume there, Jacek.
Improve communication. Kristen and Ann found a new way to deliver consistent tools and applications for their teams, clients, and users. Improve communications? Check. Amanda here is no techie, yet in less than a month, she was able to build an online application to support her community's economic growth during the pandemic. Drive economic growth? Check. Meanwhile, Martin improved his team's productivity and feels great about how much access the public now has to accurate city information 24/7. They are part of a geospatial community whose myriad of systems and applications are driven by accurate base mapping data. You too can join this community by getting an authoritative and accurate base map. Propel your business applications to newer heights through a national data exchange, and be assured of the currency and governance of information. Imagine easily calling up streets in rural municipalities in northern Alberta, building footprints in downtown Toronto, and visualizing parks and trails across Quebec with just a click. This community base map is seamless across Canada, so you'll have a great look and feel, uninterrupted by borders. Best of all, it is freely available to anyone and at any time, and without any limit on use. Your imagination will also be limitless. With a consistent base map as your foundation, employ the use of location services to give your business applications a boost. Eliminate duplication of effort and reduce data maintenance to focus on building high-value applications for your users. Isn't it time to transform how you work? We'll give you a head start. We promise it won't take long.
Hello, this is Adam Carnow.
If you're not seeing the community base maps within your gallery, we have a little 6 short steps, especially if you've had your account prior to 2019. We do have 6 steps that can help you activate and add them to your gallery. I'll take you through each of these steps one by one. First thing of all, you would need to log into your ArcGIS Online as the administrator, and then navigate from the top menu to the Organization tab and select that. From there, go navigate again to the setting options on the far right, and from the left-hand side, select Map. Once in there, scroll down to the base map gallery and choose the Esri default from the drop-down menu. Before you leave, or before one last step, you will need to make sure to click the little checkbox below the base maps to turn on the Use Esri Vector Base Map in supported ArcGIS apps. And that is how you will add 5 new styles to your base maps. And the Community Map of Canada base maps are donated with a half maple leaf and an Esri Canada branded bar at the bottom. So again, you will be able to see those, and you'll see them when Paul does his presentation.
Thank you, Alia. We have a question here, and the question is, how do I add the Community Map of Canada base maps to my enterprise account?
Oh, that's a good question, Paul. It's a little bit of longer procedure. We do have a blog about that. That also includes a video guide on how you can do that, and we'll make sure to add it in the resources when it goes out with this presentation and recording.
Great. There's also a couple of other questions, but I think we'll leave them after I've done my my part of the presentation, because I think we'll be answering some of those questions as we go along.
Awesome.
All right, so Alia,
Yeah.
I understand you moved to Montreal recently to beef up your French
Bien
and
sûr.
to enjoy the cultural aspect of Montreal this fall. You sent me this great postcard of a picture in your neighborhood, and I hope that I can come and visit you and see the neighborhood sometime.
Yeah, looking forward
So
to it.
you're thinking of as part of your adventures in Montreal of putting together a little story map, and you want to have your base map all customized to sort of reflect the fall colors, I understand. And you've got a picture, don't you, of
Yep.
yeah, there we go. Nice fall setting taken by Jean Dion, Regional Director of Quebec and Esri Canada. It's at his cottage on some lake, I imagine, in north of Montreal or so. Beautiful colors, beautiful blue, beautiful white, nice oranges and reds and greens, and you want to see if we can incorporate them into the map. Well, we can. So hold your breath and we'll step through that in a second. So before we get to that, of course, and this is just general cartographic advice that applies to any map that you create. We could actually have a whole session on cartography and cartographic tips. And if you're interested, let us know and we can organize that. But for today, we're going to keep it fairly short because the focus is going to be primarily on how to use the vector tile style editor. But I do want you to keep some things in mind. First of all, who's the audience for the map? Are you looking at technical people or general population? You have to keep that in mind. How will the map be used? Is it going to be a paper map, or it's going to be viewed solely on desktop indoors? Or are you going to be taking it outdoors on a mobile device such as a phone? What content do you want to show on the map? And finally, are there any other design requirements to consider? So many of you work for organizations that will have a logo and a sort of a corporate corporate colors and design that you might not keep in mind. So if you want to take some of those colors that show up in your organization's logo or from their website to incorporate that into your map, you can do that. So that's something that's quite great with the style editor. But one thing that you are going to have in your audience are a number of people who experience color blindness. If you can move on to the next slide there. Great. Color blindness affects men more than it does women, but 1 in 12 men and about 1 in 200 women, and that averages out to about 4% of the population. There are three main types of color blindness. Probably the biggest one is deuteranopia, but you can see in the color wheels that I've got up on screen there that we've got the normal vision color wheel up in the top left there, and compare that to the deuteranopia and the protanopia. You can see that the reds and greens for both of those are fairly indistinguishable. You can see some shading differences, but to the untrained eye, it's kind of hard to tell which one is red and which one's green. Tritanopia is a bit different. It takes out the blues on the image or whatever you're looking at. So you can still see some reds there, but you're not seeing any of the yellows and greens there. So this is something that you should take into consideration regardless of what map you are doing, whether it's a paper map or a digital map. I've come across this great Chrome extension that's available that you'll be able to view content on the web using this extension. You can see what a colorblind person would see. So this is a useful little tool that you can use when building the map. You can test it out and see how that stands up for somebody who experiences color blindness. All right, so I am going to look to share my screen here. So if Jacek, if you could just give me permission here, and I will share my screen, and hopefully you'll see what I am looking at here. All right, so here is that image that you provided me. I've actually uploaded it to, actually, let's see here, let me pull this up here. I've uploaded it to ArcGIS Online, and here is the colorblind add-in that I've actually put into my Google Chrome browser. It's called Let's Get Colorblind, and we'll send the link out to that with the rest of the presentation at the end of today's webinar. So you can see this is what most people see, you know, what we've seen before, the blues, reds, and oranges. Now let's take a look at, see how that image looks like to somebody who experiences Deuteron anomaly. And you can see that the reds and the yellows pretty much look like some sort of shade of green there. It's really hard to distinguish between the two. The blue is still the same, but you can see how it affects somebody who experiences color blindness. Same with proton anomaly, a little bit different, but the shades are a bit different. And then lastly, triton anomaly, where we can actually see some sort of aqua, and then we do see the reds. It looks like, in fact, like an infrared picture. So these are things to keep in mind. I mean, most of us look at this scene, think it's spectacular, but for those experienced color blindness, it might not be the case. So we'll go back to that, and we're going to test out the map, or actually we can do that right now. So we are here in the classic map viewer, not the new one. So the classic map viewer has an option here that we want to sort of highlight to you. But if I pull up the base map here, you can see that we've got a selection of base maps here, and here are the Community Map of Canada base maps, the ones with the half maple leaf that you talked about with the blue stripe at the bottom. We've got the topographic base map there. We've got the streets base map. We've got the streets night base map. And then further up, we can see the dark gray base map and the light gray base map. And the rest of these are all base maps coming from Esri Inc. So let's click on the streets base map for a starter. And let's just, I'm going to zoom in on, let's say Montreal, where you are currently. And just so you can see, you can test this out, I'm going to put on this little add in here just to see what the color blindness looks like. So you can see you're losing some of the reds for the roads, but the roads still stand out pretty well. And you can test it out. So this map actually does stand up pretty well to color blindness, and that's great because that's something to consider. But again, let's continue. So if we go to the content page here, we can click on that, and we get, it shows that we have the Community Map of Canada Streets base map. Now there's a little arrow here, and then we can click on that, and it opens up the Community Map of Canada Streets base map, and we've got two layers in there. One is the streets layer, and that is all the content for Canada that we update on a regular basis. Now we update that approximately twice a week. So if you're using this map, you'll get the latest and greatest content for Canada. And then behind that, we have a world street map background. And this is a modified version of the Esri street map that we've used so that when you zoom out, Canada isn't floating off by itself. So it just gives a bit more of an integrated feel to the map. But let's say we want to use the street map as a basis for building our own style. So you'll see here underneath the streets here, and again underneath the world street map, you got these little symbols here, and if you hover over that, it says change style. So let's do that for the streets. We're going to click on that, and immediately it asks you how you want to save this style. So I'm going to call this my new fall map, and I hope that name hasn't been taken yet. Oh, it does. So let's just call this new fall map 2 because, you know, that's what we do. So it's going to save it as new fall map 2 and suddenly pop me into the vector tile style editor. So here you can see that we are looking at just Canada here, not the world. So this is the Community Map of Canada. So before I get into the details about how to do some editing, which is fairly simple, I'm going to show you this one little cool feature here. So down at the bottom corner here, we've got the show mini maps, and I'm going to click on that, and you'll see what happens is we've got 3 little versions of the map that pop up, and we can zoom in to any area that we want in the country. So I'm going to zoom into Victoria out on the west coast. Let's get right down to street level details so that we can actually see houses and all that. There we are. So there we are, houses and parcels. Here, let's go to Winnipeg for this middle map here, and we're not going to zoom in as close. We're just going to get sort of a broad overview, and let's just zoom into, let's just call it, let's just say the Maritime Provinces. Okay, something like that. Okay, so I'm going to hide these mini maps, but I'm going to show you how useful they are later on as we progress through the editing. So hide that, and let's start some editing. And how do we do that? Well, it's really simple, because all we have to do is click on a feature on the map and start editing, changing the style. So I'm going to, for starters, I'm going to click on a yellow part of the country, so way up there in the north. Click on that, and lo and behold, I get a editing panel for that particular layer. So at the very top here, it indicates what that layer is and what group it's part of. And underneath is a number of specifications that we can change. And I'm going to step you through that. So the first one right at the top there is visibility. And you can actually turn this layer on or off. So I'm going to turn it off, and you can see what happens in the map. It disappears. Obviously, that would make sense. You can turn that back on. We're going to leave that on because we like to have some sort of background to our map. Underneath here, you'll see that there is a visible zoom range. And that visible zoom range goes from 0 to 23. Now, if you go to the top left corner of the map, you'll see that there's a plus and minus for zooming in and out. So if I zoom out, you can see that the number underneath there changes. Now it's at 1, and we can go all the way out to 0, and you can see that Canada is a little blob floating in space. That's the most you can zoom out, and you can zoom in, of course, all the way to the street level detail. And you can change, you can drag this bar over so that a layer only shows up between, let's say, scales 14 and 23, or you can have it for the whole thing. So I'm going to leave it at 0 so that we have it showing up at all the scales. Underneath there is where we get into the fun things where we can actually start changing things. So appearance, first thing we have is a color fill for the area. And underneath there is actually a number, a hexadecimal number. And unless you're a real nerd, which some of us are, you might not remember what the number is for a particular color. But no worry, you don't need to remember that. Instead, we have this little color block here. And if we click on that, it opens up a color panel. So you can pick any of the colors that are currently in the map over here, or you can pick some tint and shade of a particular color that we have going here, or we can go onto this continuous color plane where we can actually take this little circle and we can move it around and we can change the color. And now see what happens to the map as I do that. That change happens right away. You don't have to hit apply to see what that looks like. So if I move that down here, you can see that the map turns dark. Back up there, it turns sort of yellow. And then down below, we have this color spectrum here again with a ball that we can drag across, and we can pick out a different color if we want. So if we wanted blue or purple or whatever, and then below that, we can pick on transparency. So we can actually change the transparency if we wanted to. You can see how that affects the map. We're going to leave that as it is. And you know what? We're not going to actually pick a color from here. So I'm just going to cancel this, and it pops back to the way it was. Now, we do have a specific color in mind because we've got this great image that Ellie has provided us. And we have a nice little app here that's called Get Color. And again, we'll share that out to you after the session. It's a free app. And basically, all you need to do is click on this cursor here and then hover over any color that you want, and it'll give you the color values of the item on the that you're pointing at. So let's see if we can get some sort of gold yellow color. Actually, there we go. Okay, let's say we like that color. And again, you can pick whatever color you want. We want to take this value here, the RGB HTML value, and there's a little copy button there. I'm going to copy that, go back to my style editor. I'm just going to highlight that and paste that in there. And you can see immediately that that changes. So that's pretty cool. Now, next to this, and then actually next to all the other ones that we'll take a look at, is a little gear with a little down arrow here, right at the top here. So let's click on that, see what happens. Now we have two options here. We have, you can use a single value, or you can set value by zoom level. Currently, we have it set to a single value, so that landfill that we have in the background is going to be orange for all the scales. It's going to be consistent. Let's say we want to have something different at different zoom levels. So I'm going to click on this, and immediately you'll see a couple of boxes open up underneath. So again, at zoom level 0, which is the zoom level that we're at, as you can see here, that value is FDAA01. So we've got this orange. Let's say we want to do a different color at a different scale. So at zoom level 18, let's pick a color. So Alia, do you have a favorite color that we should use?
I don't know, purple.
Purple. Let's grab this purple. And again, you know, probably not the best cartographic choice, but again, I'm just demonstrating this so that we can show off the features of the style editor. So I'm going to click done, and you can see that the map hasn't changed at all. I mean, the background of the map is still orange, but watch what happens to the background of the land features as we zoom in. Still looking orange here, but as we zoom in here, you're going to notice that the color changes slightly. Now we're getting into sort of a mauve color. And as we get closer and closer to zoom level 18, it's going to be closer and closer to that purple that we selected. Go ahead. So, all right, I hope you can still hear me. It looks like we have some bandwidth problems here. So we are at zoom level 18, and we are at that purple value here. Sorry.
It's a little bit delayed.
Okay, how are we doing, Jacek? Is it still coming through good on your end?
It's still coming through good on my end, yeah.
Okay, so I'll just continue, and if there's continue to be problems, then let me know. So this means that the color of the land fill will be this purple from scales 18 to even beyond. So we can go down to 23, and you see that it doesn't change at all. So I'm going to zoom out here again so that we can actually see some of the map features, and I'm going to change this back to single value. All right, so we're back to our orange. Now, there are a couple of other color specifications that we can use. So we've got an outline color. If we wanted to have an outline color to this, we could add that in here. But we don't want necessarily an outline color because there's just one polygon that covers the whole area. So we're going to leave that at that. But you can also see here, again, has that option where you can actually set that value by a specific zoom level. So it's kind of a neat tool. Pattern, we can actually fill, we can put a pattern fill to the polygon. So if I wanted to, I could go in here and I could select one of the available patterns, or you can add in a pattern yourself. So you can see what that looks like if I click on that one. Lots of dots, looks a little too busy. So let's just go back to having no pattern for now.
Mm-hmm.
So and then there, of course, is the opacity. We can change the opacity from 0 to 100. And you might want to do this if you have a hill shade that you want showing through some polygon features. In this case, we're not using a hill shade, so we're going to leave it at 100 or 100, yes. And then finally, there's a position feature here where you can actually shift a feature from its actual location by a specified amount. So you probably wouldn't want to do it at this scale, but if you're working at a scale where you're showing buildings, for instance, and you want to have some sort of drop shadow, you can actually duplicate the layer and have one of the layers shifted somewhat so that it looks like a drop shadow. So that's kind of cool. That's a first step at taking a look at what you can do with this map. So I'm going to actually zoom in and show you some other features here. So let's zoom in here and see what this looks like. Now I'm gonna select a blue here, and this is a blue of a lake, obviously. So again, here in this panel, the second panel From the left, we've got the specifications showing up for that feature. We got the name of the feature showing up at the top, and we've got all those other options that we've seen before with the background. Now, if you switch over to the first panel on the left, you'll see that there we are. That's the layer highlighted that we are working on. 2 layers, community, water bodies, pond. But you'll notice that we've got a lot of other water body features, and they're all grouped into this one layer. So I'm going to click on this group here and watch what happens. We've got a different editing option here. We've got a bulk edit option. Now this is pretty useful, especially if you want to change a lot of the layers to a similar color. So in this case, let's say we want to have all the blues the same. So again, let's just flip over quickly to our image, bring up our Get Color application, and I'm going to click on that eyedropper and select a nice blue up in the top corner there, and it's that value, so I can copy that, go back to my editor, put that in here in the fill color, and you'll see all the water bodies change color. And you can see here, even under community water bodies, all those blues are now a darker blue. So that's pretty cool. Now there's you can also change text. Again, you can just click on the feature, the item on the map, shelter, skeleton lake that is, and we have some different specifications because of course we are dealing with text. So again, you can turn that layer on and off so that you see it or don't see it. You can change the visibility scale of that layer. So in this case, it's ranging from 11 to 23, and this here little arrow here that you see right in the middle is actually the zoom level that you're at. So we're at 13, so that's just 2 in from 11. So that's a little handy feature. We can put a pattern fill in there, but let's take a look at this because it's text, we want to play around with the text size and all that. So we can actually beef up the text size, and you'll see that that is affected immediately. There we go. Skeleton Lake is a little bigger now, and we can all see that. We can also change the font here if we want. So we can put it to, let's say, Palatino Linotype, a little bit different. We can change the colors of the text, for instance. So if we wanted to make this, well, let's just make this a black, for instance, we could do that. You can see that it's black. We could put a halo color around it if we want it to stand out more. Again, I don't recommend this for making a pretty map, but again, I just want to sort of highlight what you can actually do with the style editor. So we've changed the color for the halo, but no halo is showing up because we have a halo width of 0 here, as you can see. So we want to change that. We can beef that up to, let's say, 3, and you can see that that halo is showing up around Skeleton Lake. So it's really great. I really like this vector tile style editor because the changes that you make, you can see right away. And if you don't like a change, you can hit undo. So I hit the undo there, and you can see that the halo disappears. But I'm just going to put that halo on there just so that we can see going forward what it looks like. Didn't come on, did it? Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay. Actually, you know what? I'm going to redo that. There we go. Okay. And then there's some issues around placement. Again, for all those of you who are familiar with ArcGIS desktop applications, this is just another form of that, a simplified version. And I'm not going to go into that too much. So let's I'm going to show you now. Let's bring up those mini maps that I talked about earlier. You can see those mini maps, the location of the mini maps are the same as what I set them to. And you can see all those changes that I've made to the map. Well, actually, you probably can't see all the changes because they don't apply to all the scales, but you can see that the orange background applies to all of this, all the maps there. So you can immediately see what your changes are going to look like across the country. So I'm going to hide that again. And one other thing I want to show you, because this is kind of cool. So here we have a highway shield, because, we want to give this map, let's say, a little bit of a fall look. We want to change a highway shield too. So here we are. We have the highway shield. Again, we have a little specifications panel here with a few other things in here. Here is actually where the highway shield comes in under the imagery. we can actually change that. So I can click on that and you can see that there is a library already as part of your map from which you can select a symbol. So right now we've got this local highway shield pick, but let's say, you know, I want to do a tree. And you can see on the background there that the tree is already on the map there. I mean, a tree is probably not what you want right now, but let's say we had a custom image that we want to include for a hillshade. So we can easily do that. Let's go way over to the left here. We've got up here, I got edit layer styles. We got edit by color, which I'll show you in a second. Here we are, edit icons and patterns up in the top left corner. I'm going to click on that. And again, here is where your symbol library is. And as you can see, it's fairly limited. So we want to add something in. So I've created an image before using photo editing software, but what you want to do is if you want something like a highway symbol, you want to create an image which is a PNG file. So it needs to be transparent in the back. Can't use a JPEG file because then you'll have sort of a white box around that symbol. And for highway shields, you probably want to keep it around 25 to 50 pixels, 25 by 25 or 50 by 50. So something I guess my little maple leaf here I think is 45 by 50. So I'm just going to call this a leaf because I have to add that in there. Hit that button and you'll see now that it shows up in our symbol library. Still doesn't show up on the map though, so I'm going to have to go back to that highway symbol, click on that, and then if I click on the in a symbol here, I can see it pops up the library. I'm going to pick the leaf there, and there it is. The leaf is in there, kind of small, so I'm going to make that a bit bigger. Let's make that 4, so obviously it's a lot bigger, and let's make the text size a lot bigger too. So let's put that at 24. And maybe we want to change the color to a white or something like that. So there we go. So we have a very different looking highway shield with a maple leaf and a number in that. So, you know, probably doesn't stand out too well against the background. So maybe not the best cartographic choice. But again, I just wanted to demonstrate what you can actually do. One other thing before we get out of this style editor is you can actually edit by layers, style layers. So back here in this panel here, the second panel, everything is organized in the map. So we've got topo layers and everything is split out according to what it is. So we got a land base in there, we've got urban area, land use, we've got lots of water features. So you can open up any of these trails, for instance, you can see what we're using for trails. So if you prefer to do anything sort of, you know, one thing after another, you can do that. But I kind of like doing the visual thing where you click on something and change the color. So let's save this and close it. So it'll save it to your ArcGIS Online account and it should pop you back to the classic map viewer, and you can see that the map immediately pops back in there. So there it is, that's the map that we worked on. Let's see what that looks like for colorblind people. We can put our colorblind tool on. And let's go to the Deuteronomy. You can see that the greens or the oranges are a bit green. We haven't done a lot of stuff here yet, so there's not a lot of stuff for us to compare and look at. There you go. You can see those maple leaves there, some sort of shade of gray and yellow there. So again, blends pretty well into the background. So that's something that we might want to work on. So we could actually, if we wanted to, if we realize, oh, we've got some more work to do, just turn this off here. We can open that up again and we can go to edit and it'll start editing that, or we can go directly to the vector tile style editor. So if you finished off for the day, you need to do some more work the next day, you don't necessarily need to go to the classic map viewer to access the style. You can just go to the vector tile style editor. So I'm going to click on get started, and a bit of a different interface when you start. First of all, of course, you need to select a style to edit. And the styles that show up are in the popular section are all Esri Inc styles. So these are the popular maps that we have. And you can click on any one of these and you get a preview of the map, how it looks in that space there. We've got some creative styles. So this colored pencil one is kind of cool. Again, you can zoom in on it in the little preview just to give you a little taste of what it looks like. So you can see that it has a bit of a pencil crayon effect. And again, you can take any of these styles and change them according to how you do work with it. So there's a base there that has just the base layers, no text. There's a label reference layers, again, just labels, no base, and all the Esri base maps. But let's look for the ones that we just worked on. So click on My Styles, and there it is, the new fall map style that we worked on. We can open that up, select that style, and there we go. We can do some more work on it. So that's basically the style editor in a nutshell, Alia.
We have a few questions actually,
Oh,
Paul.
great. I'm happy to hear the questions.
So one of the first ones is, can I add my own custom layer?
So because we cache, so when we create the community map of Canada, we generate a vector cache, and all the layers that are in the map are in that cache. So unless you cache the map yourself, you won't be able to do that, but you can add a layer, obviously, to your base map in your viewer so that it could sit on top. So if you have a thematic layer like places that you visited in Montreal, you have a points layer for that, you can just put that on top of the map. So it wouldn't be part of the cache, it would be a feature layer on top of the vector cache, but you can't really incorporate it into the map cache itself.
Okay. And the other one, does the vector style map consume credits?
The vector style map does not consume credits, but so what happens is if you create your own vector tile style map, the only thing that is saved is actually the JSON file that determines how the map should look. So the important thing to remember with the vector tile style map is we have a vector tile cache that has all the content. We look after that, we pay for the hosting on that, but the style file itself is just a JSON file, basically a glorified text file that says when you have this feature, use this style. So the only thing that you would be charged for credits would be storage of that JSON file, and that is actually pretty minimal. And like I said, it's pretty much like a text file, so we're not talking megabytes or gigabytes of data that you're consuming.
Okay. One other question is, what is an example of why you would want to set color value by zoom? Very cool function.
Okay, that's a good question. I'm just going to actually, probably the best thing to do would be to pull up a nice example. So I'm actually sure if we have an example here. So, and I'm thinking on my feet here. So in some instances, you might want to have, let's say, parks, for instance, show up at a in less of a more, actually, you know what, I'm going to take topographic style. Now this is the Esri Ink style that we're looking at, but it's just an example. You might want to have something like parks show up with a darker color. Now for some reason it's not showing up. So let's say we're talking about parks. You might want to have it show up at a darker color at smaller scales so that it stands out more. But as you zoom in, you might want to lighten up that color because obviously, let's say if we zoomed into Algonquin here, you know, at this scale, we might want to have it somewhat light, but as we go in, or at this scale, we might want to have it a bit darker, but as we zoom in, because that whole park is going to fill the whole area, we might want to have it as a lighter color so that the color doesn't dominate here. Let's see if they've actually done that. No, they've actually. Okay, so they've changed the opacity here, so you can see that it's a little more transparent or a little less transparent as you zoom in. Not very big, but this is something that you might want to consider.
And I have one more question. You might have mentioned it, but is this capability Is this capability to modify the tiles available in Portal Enterprise 10.8.1?
I believe it is. I believe you are able to change the style. You're able to save that style and incorporate that into your portal. And I will confirm that. Because I'm not too familiar with Portal, and I'm not sure if there are special instructions to do that. But I will take a look at that and get back to you after the session sometime, if that's all right. I think we did have a question early on from somebody who was inquiring about how to submit changes or how to submit
Label errors.
label errors. And I'm going to show you, we do have an application for that, and we'll send out the link to that. Here's our Community Map of Canada homepage. Has a lot of great features on here. So some of the best practices and guides, some of the contributions and updates that we've received over the past while, some data viewers and status dashboards. And again, here's a style gallery. The 5 main styles that we have. And then of course, there's a little PDF that lists all the contributors that we have. Down here is that style of the month that Elliot was talking about earlier. And at the very bottom, we have a Community Map of Canada feedback. So you can actually click on this feedback tool, and then it's just basically a Survey 123 application. You can zoom into the area where there's an issue. You can type in what kind of feedback it is. You can add in some comments. You can add in an image if you have some evidence that you want to share with us. Just add in your name and email. It gets submitted to us. We take a look at that, and we'll try to get back to you ASAP on that and make those changes if, in fact, they are incorrect.
Do you have time for one more?
Sure. We still got 15 minutes yet before the hour.
Is there a link that defines what apps can consume a vector tile base map? All apps compatible?
I don't know if there is a link, but I can tell you that pretty much all of the Esri ArcGIS applications are compatible with the vector tile maps, except for ArcMap. ArcMap still requires a raster base map, and we still have those available. Those are not updated right now. But they are available for use, at least for reference purposes. But ArcPro and all the other applications that we have, as far as I understand, are compatible with vector tile maps.
And I think this also answers another question. Can you use vector map package on Survey 123?
I believe so, but again, I'm going to have to confirm that and get back to you, if that's all right.
All right. So I think that's it. So recap of our webinar, it would be, make sure to use the great start for any creative map would be the Community Map of Canada, the the ArcGIS Vector Tile Style Editor is a great tool. You can always play around with it and make sure to change maps or base maps to create your own style and your identity. If you have any questions or you want Paul to ever critique a map or help you with a map, within our slide deck that we'll be sharing at the end of this webinar, you will have his contacts and mine as well. So you can always reach out to either one of us, and we will get you guys set up. And
there's one thing I want to share yet, Alia. So I'd just like to share my screen here. Jacek, if you can give me permission to do that. There we go. Just some upcoming Esri Canada events here. That's not what I want to show. Let me bring up my webpage here. Here we are. So if you go to do a search for Esri Canada events, and we can send this link out to you too, you'll see that we've got a number of events coming up. Actually, this one that we are at is very at the top, getting mapping creative with Esri Vector Tile Style Editor. But we have a number of other events, some webinars, some seminars. Seminars are new. These are longer versions of our webinars where we actually get into in depth. So we got a new storytelling landscape seminar coming up, and that's actually, I think it's a 2 or 3 hour seminar. So if you're interested in how to tell stories with ArcGIS and ArcGIS story maps, this would be the one for you.
I'm actually looking forward to that one.
That does look interesting. We do have a number of other events as well. So some seminars, some industry events. So, you know, and GIS Day, of course, coming up in November. So check out what we have on offer and sign up for whatever you're interested in. And again, like Alia said, I mean, if you're looking for some cartographic critique from the cranky cartographer, I can supply that to you if you're interested. And let us know what other topics you'd be interested in us speaking about. So back to you, Alia.
I'm good, and thank you everybody for joining us today. And we look forward to being your hosts again at an upcoming webinar.
Great, thank you very much, everybody. Nice to see you.
Bye.